It's 9 o'clock in the morning here in the Misty Mountains. It's 53 degrees and cloudy, and it is I, your guide to all the tabletop role playing game news, weather, and general nonsense that is affectionately referred to as the OGGM, and it's Dragon Week. In day 2 of Dragon Week, we're looking at the second most iconic dragon in film history, as well, probably for most, the most iconic dragon in film history, and that is the great and terrible Smaug. Now, for most of you, Smaug is Benedict Cumberbatch in the 3-part Hobbit film. But for those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s and were lucky enough to see it, Smaug was this. The great and terrible Smaug, as presented in the Rankin-Bass animated cartoon, The Hobbit, which one of my favorite films. I can't tell you how many times I listened to the soundtrack, at least once a week. Read the book so many times, still read it, like once a year. The Hobbit was it for me. That was the gateway drug. Reading The Hobbit for the first time, being Bilbo, and the description of Smaug and the dwarf song, reading the dwarf song, hearing the dwarf song in the animated version, and then hearing the dwarf song in the live action version. Yeah, I mean, is there any dragon more iconic in fantasy fiction than Smaug, especially the Rankin-Bass portrayal of Smaug? This was the original Smaug. I mean, I loved Benedict Cumberbatch's description of Smaug, don't get me wrong, but this is Smaug. This is Smaug, the great and terrible Smaug. How great and how terrible? Well, he's described in the song. So, far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break our day, to seek our pale enchanted gold. The dwarves of yore made mighty spells, while hammers fell like ringing bells, in places deep where dark things sleep, in hollow halls beneath the fells. For ancient kings and elvish lord, there a many gleaming golden hoard, they shaped and wrought and light they caught, to hide in gems on hilt of sword. On silver necklaces they strung, the flowering stars on crowns they hung, the dragon fire on twisted wire, they meshed the light of moon and sun. Far over misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to claim our long forgotten gold. Goblets they clawed there for themselves, and harps of gold where no men dwell. They long, and many a song was sung unheard by men or elves. Undoubtedly, all this wealth is what brought the dragon. The pines were roaring on the heights, the wind was moaning in the night, the fire was red, its flaming spread, the trees like lorches bled with light. The bells were ringing in the dale, the men looked up, their faces pale, the dragon's ire more fierce than fire, laid low their towers and houses frail. The mountains smoked beneath the moon, the dwarves they heard the tramp of doom, they fled the hills to dying fall beneath the feet beneath the moon. Far over misty mountains grim, to dungeons deep and caverns dim, we must away ere break of day, to win our harps and gold from him. The wind was weathered heath, but in the forest stirred no leaf, their shadows lay by night or day, and dark things silent crept beneath. The wind came down from mountains cold, and like a tide it roared and rolled, the branches groaned, the forest moaned, the leaves were laid upon the mold. The wind went from the west to east, all moment in the forest ceased, but chill and harsh across the marsh in whistling voices wore release. The grasses hissed, their tassels bent, the reeds were rattling, on it went. O shaken pole under heaven's cool, where racing clouds were torn and rent. It passed the lonely mountains bare, it swept over the dragon's lair. There black and dark lay boulder stark, the flying smoke was in the air. It left the world and took its flight over the wide seas of the night. The moon set sail upon the gale, and the stars were fenned by leaping flight. Under the mountain, dark and tall, the king has come into his fall. The foe is dead, the worm of dread, and ever so his foes shall fall. The sword is sharp, the spear is long, the arrow swift, the gate is strong, the heart is bold, that looks on gold, the dwarves no more shall suffer wrong. So there's the poem about Smaug the Great and Terrible, how he took over and how he was eventually defeated. And yeah, this for me is the epitome of Smaug the Great and Terrible, the rankinbass Smaug. Yeah, I get chills still at 58. I'm, 7-year-old me reading The Hobbit again. I'm, listening to the soundtrack, trying to catch it every time it was on TV. I love the Rankin-Bass animated Hobbit. I still try and watch it at least once a year. I try and read The Hobbit at least once a year. This was the gateway fantasy for me. This was my Middle Earth. This is who I wanted to be. I wanted to be Bilbo on that great adventure. I wanted to go to live in Rivendell with the elves. I wanted to live in the Shire. This was the great escape for me, was The Hobbit, that soundtrack, that adventure, that music, and that dragon. So for Dragon Week Day 2, we got to go with Smaug, the Great and Terrible. See you tomorrow for Day 3.